What's up everybody, BigSweetC here with you. Got a special little video for you. Today, I want to talk about The Last of Us. Not part 2, which we've been talking about fairly recently. I want to talk about the original The Last of Us. The first one that came out on PlayStation 3 back in the long time ago of 2013. That's right. The game's 8 years old, and we're already talking about the fact that Sony has just announced that they're going to remake the game. Now, when I first heard this, I kind of thought it was all fluff. I thought it was kind of one of those, they're getting confused between a remake and a remaster, because I did hear there was speculation in the wind that they were going to remaster once again, The Last of Us, and then they were going to kind of remaster The Last of Us 2 as a combo pack for the PS5. Now, I actually think that's a great idea. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I would be, if I didn't already own both of the games, I'd be right front of the line to pick up that little package piece right there. But alas, the later word on the street is, and they just announced this a couple of days ago, this is gonna be a remake. Now, when I first heard that, I immediately thought, oh man, they're gonna f this up just like Disney did Star Wars. Right, they tried to revamp the original Star Wars movies 4, 5, and 6 with 7, 8, and 9. 7, 8, and 9 are utter garbage, and it's pretty much tainted the entire legacy that is Star Wars. And yes, I'm including Rogue One and Solo and all the other. Rogue One was pretty decent. I'll give you Rogue One. Everything else was garbage. Utter trash, done by completely different people that had no idea what they were doing in the first place. And it came out like a bunch of trash made by a bunch of people that had no idea what they were doing in the first place. Now, the honest truth is, I still don't really know if it's going to be a remake or a remaster, because the guys over at Sony haven't given us a release date, haven't given us a trailer, haven't really given us any details other than the fact that they've been working on this for about a year and a half now or so. And then just recently, within the last 6 months, a bunch of the guys that were actually on The Last of Us 2 development team have jumped aboard the remake, remaster, whatever it happens to be, of The Last of Us recently, pumping up production. So one can assume it could be a lot more recent than we think it might be. But then again, anything goes in game development. It could be a couple of years before we see anything like this. With the fact that PlayStation 5's, oh my god, I can't even speak right now. With the fact that PlayStation 5 is almost impossible to find right now, they are becoming more and more available, but, you know, they're still not widely available. I find it hard to imagine that they would want to kind of put it out now. I see this with Demon's Souls a lot. Demon's Souls is a fantastic remaster, excuse me, and I think a lot more people would enjoy it, but no one can get their hands on a PlayStation 5, so no one's playing it because it's already kind of a niche game, and then it's already, you know, it's very, very hard to get what you need to play that niche game. So I feel like even though The Last of Us has a pretty decent following to it, especially along the lines of the PlayStation side of things, you're on the PlayStation side instead of the Xbox side in the console wars, you've probably come across The Last of Us. And quite honestly, it's not like going back and replaying The Last of Us is like terrible or anything. It's still a very good game. It's still fun to play. Still a great story. But I do see why they would want to improve with The Last of Us 2. I have my qualms with the story. It's still utter shite, in my opinion. And I haven't heard a good argument as to change my theory on that. But graphic-wise, gameplay-wise, mechanic-wise, it is a fairly superior game in a lot of ways, and I really like the facial detail that you get in 2 versus the first one, having gone back and replayed the first one recently. There's a lot of clunkiness in the first one that they've cleaned up in the second. There's a few added things in terms of the game mechanics in the second one versus the first. The areas are much bigger for one, so there's a bunch of more different ways you can kind of go about playing out your playthrough. So there were a lot of benefits to the Last of Us 2 versus The Last of Us 1, but I wouldn't call that a remake. That would be just a remaster of the first one. And now maybe they're just afraid that if they make another remaster, people won't buy it because there's already a remaster of The Last of Us. But a remake, in my opinion, means that they're going to go back and like actually change things, like they did with Final Fantasy VII Remake, like they did with the Resident Evil 2 Remake, and that concerns me. Because going back to the old Star Wars reference, Disney did not do a very good job with revamping Star Wars. The Last of Us 2 got so much into itself that instead of putting out a quality product, it put out a better version of the first one that is only good for the actual gameplay. To be honest with you, The Last of Us 2 would be perfect if you somehow just substituted the story for the first one and you were like playing through the story of the first one, but you just had the good gameplay of the second one, because they butchered The Last of Us 2. And again, haven't heard an argument that is worth its weight to convince me otherwise. I have had in-depth conversations with lots of my friends trying to nitpick its way into why it had to be the way it was, and I can't buy any one of them. But that's another video. I will maybe at some point, if I get enough comments on this one, you guys want to hear it, we'll do a compare contrast, first one versus second one, and my stance on that. But this is about the remake remaster. So, and I have actually heard, there's word on the street that the HBO series that is coming out about The Last of Us might influence the story of The Last of Us, the first game. Now, again, that kind of gives me pause. I look at games like Final Fantasy VII Remake and the additional story, in my opinion, added to the greatness that is the Final Fantasy VII story. But then again, I also see other things that they went into and tried to explain, and it kind of tarnished the idea. I know I keep going back to the Star Wars references, but the more we learned about Vader, the less I gave a shit that he turned into Darth Vader. And I'm worried that that might be kind of the issue here. The Last of Us 2 needs additional explanation, because everything the characters do doesn't come through, and you wouldn't think that it would actually happen, because it's the most overdramatic teenage drama in the history of video games that literally is almost too intelligent to the point that it's kind of circled its way around to ignorance. You know, if you think of the intelligence scale as a circle, they've almost gone so far into the we're trying to be smart that they've come back around, and their head is so far up their a-hole that they're actually ignorant instead. Again, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but it was bad. It was bad writing, and it frightens me for this, because if they're gonna then start turning the show into the story, now you're looking at two different worlds, two different mediums. Video game stories are much, much different than movie stories. Look at the Resident Evil franchise. The first one was okay. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was a great movie. I enjoyed it because it was Resident Evil on the big screen. But it was not a good movie. nor was it even remotely close to as good as the stories that have been in the video game franchise. Final Fantasy VII had the spirits within. That was not very good. Now on the flip side of that, Final Fantasy VII also had Advent Children, and that kicked ass. But that was, again, more along the lines of the niche anime kind of series that was not very popular at the time of its release. Anime has become more popular now, but when Advent Children came out, people were not talking about Dragon Ball Z. They weren't talking about Sword Art Online. This stuff wasn't mainstream yet. And so they could get away with being closer in resemblance to the video game than creating its own genre, own story to fit the platform. The Last of Us maybe has enough weight to push itself into its own creation, but look how Game of Thrones ended. Like, I love HBO. HBO has put together, in my opinion, the greatest lineup of content that I have ever seen in original content on TV. You've got The Wire. You've got Oz. You've got Curb Your Enthusiasm. There's many, many more that I'm just not going to list right now, but they have put together a fantastic lineup of content. But that content has all basically stemmed on that platform. Now, when they got to Game of Thrones, when they were adapting the books for the first 5 or 6 seasons or whatever it was very interesting. It was very in-depth. It was very planned out. It was very well put together. Then they kind of started going on their creative freedom on their own. And by the time they got to that 10th season, we had to wait 2 years for probably the most disappointing season I've ever seen in any series ever. Like, the last season of Game of Thrones was not good. Not good for HBO. Not good. Period. Like, we were 2 days into the first episode, and people already knew what the ending was going to be. Not because of a leak, not because of this or that, or this guy said that, or whatever, but because it was totally predictable from day one. I had this same problem. I still have this same problem with The Walking Dead. I watched 2 episodes of The Walking Dead, saw that somebody was mowing the front lawn, and realized this is going to be bad. There's little subtle things that kind of push me either way. And so originally I wasn't even going to talk about this because I was going to let Sony kind of do its thing, Naughty Dog kind of do its thing. Even though I wasn't a big fan of The Last of Us 2, they have earned enough respect from me that you can have kind of a stinker, if you will. And I'm a diehard Sony guy. I've said this from the beginning. If it wasn't for the fact that my brother had an Xbox, I'd be strictly PlayStation. I'm still that way. In my opinion, outside of Game Pass, there's no reason to own an Xbox over a PlayStation. Period. End of story. Like, if you're looking for something that's got the best library, everything I can play on Xbox, I can play on PlayStation, but I don't get The Last of Us, I don't get Marvel's Spider-Man, I don't get Final Fantasy VII, I don't get God of War, and the list, I don't get Bloodborne. The list goes on, so it's no question. Sony is the clear winner in the Sony versus Microsoft console war, at least in my opinion. And so I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. I was going to wait for it. But then I got to thinking I didn't really have a feeling one way or the other. Because I do generally want them to update The Last of Us. I do generally want them to put the better game mechanics in. Maybe reopen up the multiplayer. Like, the multiplayer is some of the funnest multiplayer I've ever played in any video game. I was highly disappointed, highly bummed out when they, at least I thought they had turned it off. Although I hear that might not be the case. Allegedly, there's supposed to be some multiplayer coming out for the second one, but I haven't heard turn, tail, or lickings about it. Now we have all this information that they've been working on this remaster, remake, whatever they're gonna call it, for a couple of years now. Well, where's the Last of Us 2 multiplayer? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like a capitalistic move here, and this is what gives me my doubts. This feels like they're running high on the fact that The Last of Us has clout to the name. They use the clout to that name and the controversy of The Last of Us 2 to run that game up the flagpole for Game of the Year, and now they're trying to cash in on their IP. Ideally, in a free market society, there's nothing bad about that. But when you're actively tarnishing your product because you want to bring in as much money as possible, as opposed to continue producing quality content, I'm a little skeptical. I don't abide by those rules. Yes, I have a Patreon. Yes, I accept subs. But I'm not every 2 minutes on my streams, every 20 minutes on my videos going, hey, help the channel out by hitting that subscription button. Give me money so I can make better videos type of thing. That's not my content production. My focus is on trying to provide quality content. If you guys donate because of it, fantastic. I look at video games the same way. I am an anti-capitalist, if you will. Now, I don't despise capitalism like a lot of people, even though I do say I do sometimes. But sometimes you can take it too far. Unfettered capitalism is not necessarily a good thing. Greed is not good, if you're familiar with the old Gordon Gekko talk. And it's unfortunate because Naughty Dog was such a fantastic company, has been such a fantastic company in the past, that it's a bummer to kind of see him go down this path. Now, I hope that's not it. I hope it's more of a remaster. I hope that they're calling it a remake so they can distinguish it from the PS4 remaster. I'm gonna, pretend, at least for the time being, I'm gonna assume that's what this is. But I don't know. I don't know. If they're gonna change things around to kind of more fit the Last of Us 2 story, one of the storylines in particular that seems to be floating around the interwebs, they're gonna add more Abby to the first one to justify her in the second one. That's what always kind of makes me keep going back to the Star Wars thing, the Vader specifically. When Vader revealed that he was Luke's father, everybody was, oh my god, you're supposed to bring balance. Like, why would the guy that's chosen, the anointed one, essentially the Jesus in the Star Wars story, why would he turn bad? But if you don't tell anybody why, you can let your imagination run wild. You can fulfill your own fantasies, so to speak. Whereas The Last of Us 2 is basically all people are inherently evil, but everybody's got a reason for their evil actions, and they beat you to death with this idea that people cannot change. They are who they are. They're just going to be that way, and you just have to learn to accept them.
Get the fuck out of my town.
Now, if that's what you're trying to say, that's fine. I don't have to say that I think that is an entertaining or useful or woke or educational story in the least part. The two are not mutually exclusive. The two are mutually exclusive? The two are not mutually exclusive. I was right the first time. I speak English. But again, I keep getting off on a tangent talking about, my likes and dislikes. That'll be another time, another video, if you guys want it. I might do it just because I keep talking about it. But before I get too far into this incoherent rambling, I what really kind of made me end up actually doing this video is because I'm actually kind of curious as to what your thoughts are. Apparently, a lot of the backlash has been bad, but all I seem to see on the internet are articles about the backlash, but I don't actually see the backlash. So I'm kind of curious as to what you guys think, whether you're down for a remake or not. You know, The Last of Us was kind of the swan song of the PS3. And I'm surprised Sony would kind of, like, I could see why they would want to keep it up. But then again, now this goes back into another discussion about backwards compatibility. Like, okay, so you can make the argument that, you know, Sony is trying to update this because it's a Sony exclusive, so they want it to fulfill the generations, so you don't have to worry about backwards compatibility. But why not do that with, like, Bloodborne as well? Bloodborne is backwards compatible. Are they going to remaster that one as well? Are they going to remaster the God of War? I know they're coming out with a sequel to God of War, but, I mean, we have a sequel to The Last of Us. So it begs more questions into what the ulterior, the grand scheme of things, I think, is at Sony. And maybe I'm looking too much into this. I don't know. You guys let me know. You guys dig the idea of a remake or a remaster of The Last of Us? Again, I'm down for a remaster. I don't know if I'm down for a remake. But you guys let me know one way or the other. Hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit those comments down below. If you didn't like it, do me a favor. Hit that down like button, that sub button, and hit those comments below. Whatever floats your boat. Either way, that's going to do it for this one. BigSweetC, that's me. Wishing YouTube, that's you. Wonderful day, night, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it might be. As long as you're watching, I'm wishing you a wonderful watching time. Sweetness, signing off. Peace.